A package in the mail, MSX games from Japan. Collecting without fail, those shoot 'em ups, and that's the plan. He doesn't just collect them, he also codes them too. Join us and we'll go on electric adventures with you.
Hey YouTube, Electric Adventures here with my channel update for June and July. I've just had such a busy time. I have not had time to make many videos. The only one I really did get time to make was that recent really good MSX pickup that my friend helped me get hold of from the UK. Some really good games and titles. Yeah, so I've got a couple of pickups. Now my good local friend Aaron was at one of our local tip shops and he found this. And he immediately messaged me and said, "Tony, this would go great with your Berserk arcade game." So it's the Berserk board game. Now I haven't actually looked inside it yet, and you can see the tip shop's price on there. It's got a couple of bits of sticky tape holding it closed. I've actually had this over a month because I was going to include it in last month's video. I never got time. Alright, opening the box, so nothing in the back there. So I'm seeing pictures of other people with this, but not seen it all played it myself. So you've got the board, which looks like a maze from Berserk. That looks pretty cool, it's in pretty good condition. We have a manual. A little sticky note, 2 dice, 1 under counter. Oh yeah, there's 2 dice in there. I have no idea how you play the game, but it's got pretty good instructions. Looks like you've got to move the pieces and get close. So this is the interior, there's not a lot in here, so you've just got this tray, but that's all art, looks in good condition, it's actually in really good nick. And here are the pieces. Oops, can't get that. So we have various double-sided enemies and robots. On here's our actual hero, I'd say. Got a movable gun. And there's a couple of there's a bunch of white counters. White counters, I didn't quite grab them all, and 2 red dice. So potentially it's looking fairly complete, and it's in really everything's in has really good colour, and looks really nice. So I'll have to I'm sure my youngest daughter would like to have a game of that with me, so I'll challenge her to do a game of that a little later. So I'm very pleased to get that, so thank you to my mate Aaron. Pieces to lay down a bit more, and that will be very nice to go with that Berserk arcade game, which is still not working. It's getting very close. It gets up to the complaining that the colour board is not correct, so it's either the colour board, and I do have 2 of them, or it's the cables. I just haven't had a chance to make up new cables. Also, my daughter actually, my youngest daughter, with her very first pay, she got a job, she bought herself a record player. We no longer had a working record player in the house. I used to collect records when I was younger, and I still had all my records, and they were in really good condition because mostly back then I used to use the record player, tape them, and use the tapes all the time, so they're in very good condition. So she started that, and she's already bought a couple of records. I've set up an old amplifier for her and some stereo speakers, and I needed to go get some speaker cable. And as you do, I went to our local electronics shop to get, $5 worth of speaker cable, and there was something else on special, and I bought it. And it's this. It's an arcade stick. It's quite heavy, solid, and the idea is you put a Raspberry Pi in this. Now it doesn't come with the Raspberry Pi, but it is all wired up regardless. So there's my Raspberry Pi I've already put in there. The sticks, the buttons are not too bad. The sticks, he's very heavy, sorry about it. And I have wired it up and put RetroPi on there, and it's got its own power switch and a power supply and HDMI out. It's got a hinge on there so you can easily open it. I don't even have the screw. I don't even have the screw in there at the moment, but it's got nice feet so it doesn't move around while you're playing it. And I got that because I regularly take part, although not recently, in the Tubers High Score Challenge, and they quite often play arcade games, and half of the time I have to mess around getting the emulation going, and I do just like sitting down playing some arcade games that I don't have. So obviously I can put emulators for other systems on there, and I've put a couple of ROMs on there from other systems, but I've got most of the original hardware for those, so I prefer to play them on original hardware. So that's not really what it's for. It's mainly for playing some arcade games. And what I'll do, we'll cut to some short video, just give you a really quick demo. It's nothing too exciting, and getting it set up was you have to manually install some things to get the drivers for the sticks going, but it wasn't too hard. Here we go. Here's the sheet if you want to know what the actual unit is. So the instructions are not very clear, but luckily I've done these things before and I managed to work it out. And yeah, it's not too bad. So alright, let's go and have a quick look at that now. So it works quite simply. I've just put some MAME ROMs on there, so not a huge amount, and fairly old ROMs, but it's sort of like anyway. You just come in here, you go up and down to select your games, press left and right, that changes systems, which takes a little bit of getting used to. But it plays all the classics quite well. You can bring up a configuration menu, or options. You can jump to a letter. Press the A button, so that gets us to D. So a shooter. You press a button, now they do take a little while to load. So this is a Raspberry Pi 3B. There we go, it's loaded the things, but they play quite well. There's a Nemco title. A bit of trivia, I actually only just missed out on an actual arcade piece of beer with this at one stage. I think I would have enjoyed it. I think this was actually in the Tubers High Court. Tubers High Score Challenge at one stage. So the controls work quite well. So it's not one hit death, which is very good for this demonstration because I'm not doing that good. And what I just picked up there actually healed some of the things I lost, and now we actually do have some power-ups. Oh god. So as you can see, I can play an arcade game and the controls seem reasonable. I haven't really tweaked anything. and obviously I haven't played this game much and I crap at it. Now, so if you get sick of that and you want to play something else, you just hold the coin and start buttons together. So we go and play Darius. As you can expect from me, I like my shooters. So this should be horizontal. And this is only, you know, a cheap LG LCD we're using here, nothing flash. Oh, this is a really widescreen game, I forgot about that. It's probably going to be a bit small. Oh god. This one might be one that you really need to play on an even bigger monitor still. But as you can see, that plays reasonably smooth. Oh dear, not doing very well. That allows you to scratch your, your arcade itch, and let's see if we can find something a little bit more traditional. Dig dog. What would I be looking for? How about we go for Donkey Kong? Something that this should be able to emulate with ease. Audio samples not found. Okay. So I've just copied the ROMs on there. I obviously may have some little bit more setup to do. So people are actually putting these Raspberry Pi setups in arcades nowadays, and I do actually have, now that I'm recording this, another pickup which I've forgotten about. I actually have a Pi jammer, but other than taking it out of its packet, I haven't done anything with it yet. And I do have another Raspberry Pi. That sounds reasonable. I think you really need a 4-gate on the controller when you're playing Donkey Kong. But anyway, it works really well. Once again, the setup, it's not obvious, but it's with a little bit of nutting out, it's not that hard to work out. The main thing is to get the right sets of arcade ROMs to go with the version of MAME you're running. And some of the more modern versions of MAME on the Raspberry Pi, you really need a Raspberry Pi 4. But I'm not really into the beat-em-ups and things like that. Alright, back to me. Okay, back. So, as you can see, it allows me to play some arcade games on my, I've got a high def, well, just an LCD screen here that accepts HDMI next to my CRT, which I play most of the retro games on. And I should be able to feed the output of that into my capture solution to capture games when I'm doing the Tubers High School Challenge, and sit here and play it more comfortably. So you never know, my scores might improve, or they might not. But anyway, it's all for a bit of fun, and it wasn't very expensive. I think they're normally $150 or something like that, and I got that for $75, so not too bad considering it's made out of solid metal. Now also, when I make a game for the ColecoVision, I make up a certain number of prototypes. I've been using cartridge shells and boards, and they make it in these little stubby cartridges. Sorry, I don't have a prop. I mean, I've just about used them all up. Now, one of the other people in the Coleco world, his name's Eric Charter, has actually made up a little 32K PCB. Now, if I remember, I'll put the link down below. It only requires a fairly easy to get IC and an EEPROM. Now, I've got plenty of EEPROMs at the moment, and I ordered some of these. I got these from Mouser at quite a cheap price, but I just haven't had a chance. I need to I need to solder a socket into one and put the IC on and just test it out with some games. But it's a very, very simple cartridge design. And for cases, Eric is also working on a STL file, so I'll be able to, you know, print low quantity cases on my 3D printer. Speaking of which, I went to print some stuff on my 3D printer, mainly trying to get the cases for the Spectravideo right, and they kept on coming out wonky, and then I was only getting the first couple of layers, and then I noticed what the problem was. The belt that moves the tray, the mount that comes with this, I mean, the ANET A8 Plus is quite a good 3D printer, but some of the bits are just not totally well thought through. So the tensioner and the other end of the Y belt, which drives the tray back and forth like this, keeps on coming undone all the time. So you get a certain print starts off perfect, it's looking good, and you get a certain way out the print, and then the belt starts to loosen, so the print starts to go wonky, and you're not sitting there watching it all the time, because this print takes hours, and you come back and everything's a mess. I mean, it actually got worse, and then I noticed all this graphite dust below, and the strainer that comes with it is absolutely terrible. So I've already partially put it in the printer. I actually need to get a new belt. It came far quicker than I expected, because the belts I can get on mainland Australia, whereas that came from China. And I haven't even ordered the belts yet, so I need a longer belt to fit now to mount it properly. And so I'll put a picture up here. This strainer, not only has a larger diameter wheel as well that has the notches in it, so it's not going to slip on the belt. And it allows a lot better tension to be put on, and it's not going to come undone as the printer moves. So hopefully that'll improve things when I get a chance to get a new belt, and then I can print some sample cartridges and see how I go. Because I normally make about half a dozen of each title, just as you know, original prototypes from the developer, and I usually gift those to the people who tested the games, and keep one myself, of course. Now, also, speaking of homebrew, I've continued to work on Sydney Hunter and the Caverns of Death. It really is. The game is functionality complete now. It is just down to a couple of little bugs, just adjusting some jumping and collision testing, and just playing through the game and just making sure you can play through the game and all things, and just little tweaks and things. So, but I did have a little bit of time off, and I didn't have all my tools with me. So I decided to tidy up my libraries that I use on Coleco, MSX and original Spectravideo, and I wrote a really quick test game. By really quick, it only took me a day, so hopefully you see some video over there. And it's a late 70s arcade game called Depth Charge. I actually wrote a version of this game in BASIC with a little bit of machine code back in the late 80s and released it for the Spectravideo and MSX. So what I did, I took the graphics that I created for that one, and then I rewrote the engine purely in machine code, and then I used that same code, made it for the Coleco first, but then I ported it across to the Spectravideo and MSX just to make sure that all of my libraries are working across all the three systems. And I did find some bugs because I haven't done the back porting for a little while. And so there, it's a little game now. I'm giving away the Spectravideo ROM down there. The Coleco ROM I may give away for free because it's not much of a game. I may either, if I can think of another simple game to go with it, maybe I'll package into a real cartridge. Otherwise, I'll probably end up giving it away for people to download at a later stage if I don't do that. But it was really just a programming exercise, just to get all of my libraries working really well. And also my title Cavern Fighter is available for sale for the ColecoVision from the ColecoVision website. They sold the first run of cartridges out in a couple of days, but they have got some more on order, and they're on the way, and I believe they've already received some of those and sold some of those. So if you go to the ColecoVision website, you can order Cavern Fighter for the ColecoVision, and it might take a couple of weeks to get to you, but there's another batch on the way. And obviously, a long time in the making, so if you're after a physical copy, it is hard to keep these things in stock for a period of time because you've got to buy the manuals and boxes in batches. So if you want a copy, get onto it and go order it from ColecoVision. Also another game, Berzerk. I've been doing some bug fixes on that, and it still needs a little bit more work, but that'll be the next game released from ColecoVision for the Coleco. I'm working on that simultaneously with the Sydney Hunter. And also playing around with my graphics sprite and tile editor just earlier this week. I mocked together the graphics and a little bit of motion for the game Lunar Rescue. Now Lunar Rescue is a very early Taito game that runs on Space Invaders hardware, and it's quite a fun little game, and it's another game that back in the day I wrote a version in BASIC with a little bit of machine code. And basically you have your ship up the top in the mothership, you drop down out of the mothership dodging asteroids, and you've got to land on one of the platforms, so it's mixing a bit of asteroids with a bit of maybe Frogger I suppose and Lunar Lander. You land on the platforms, you rescue an astronaut, then the asteroids turn into Space Invaders, although they are different shape from the original Space Invaders, who shoot at you, and you've got to go up at a fixed speed that you can't change, and you can shoot them, and on the way up you can shoot, and then you've got to dock with the mothership. And you've got 6 astronauts to try and rescue each round, and then it gets a bit harder. So I've mocked up some graphics with a little bit of movement, and it didn't take very long, and hopefully you see a bit of gameplay running while I ramble on about that. So that one, definitely, I reckon there'll be some interest in it if I release that on physical cartridge, and I'll of course release that for the Coleco, the original Spectravideo, and the MSX as well. And I am jumping around a little bit, and I have mostly finished porting Cavern Fighter back to the MSX and original Spectravideo, because the game, that's what the game was originally for, the MSX and Spectravideo, but I never finished it back in the late 80s. So that version will be coming out, you know, another couple of months, and I do have some cartridge shells for MSX, and I've got circuit boards. I have circuit boards for the Spectravideo. Not that I'm expecting many people to buy the Spectravideo version. It's only for myself to get a physical copy of the game on the original system that I love, and maybe a couple other people might be interested in one. And I'm going to get some boxes printed for the MSX and Spectravideo versions, and they'll be the same. They'll just have a system sticker over for the Spectravideo, I reckon. It's not worth printing a whole lot of boxes for the Spectravideo version. So I do have lots of plans, and I did last time I talked, I showed you the graphics for Kangaroo, so that's another one, upcoming games. And I also have another one of my original games from back in the day, PiCade, which I do have running on the Coleco. And I'm enhancing the game a little bit, because back in the day I had to limit it to 12.5K, so it would run on the original Spectravideo. So I sort of did limit the extent of the game. I made level 3 a bit shorter, and I didn't put any variety in the enemies and the motherships at the end, so I've actually enhanced it a little bit for the ColecoVision. So I'm probably going to call it PiCade 2 or PiCade DX or something like that, and then I'll backport that as well to the MSX and Spectravideo, because that was only ever available on cassette and floppy disk back in the day, so it'd be nice to have a cartridge release of my best-selling game on the original system. So lots and lots of homebrew playing, and it is what I've been spending the bulk of my time lately. So I really haven't made any progress on restoring any machines. I have been playing my Arcade 1-Up Attack from Mars Virtual Pinball. I enjoyed that. And right, so while we're on the subject of pinball, and I know we've probably gone a bit long here, but last weekend I was, the weekend before last now, I was very lucky to be invited along to some very good friends up the north of Tasmania, and they had what's called a pin crawl. So you go to various people's places, and there were 3 places in this particular thing, and you play pinballs, have a bit of a tournament. So they have multiple machines there. There were 6 tournament games at each one, plus a novelty competition at each one. So we got to go there, hang out with some good people, play some pinball. I didn't do very well at the first venue. but I did much better at the second venue and even won the novelty prize. And I'm going to have to insert a picture because I've started recording this video and haven't brought the trophy. I actually won a little trophy, and that's for playing Creature from the Black Lagoon one-handed, and I got the highest score. And actually at that venue I did quite well actually, so there were 21 people in the tournament and I believe I came 8th. We had to leave the final venue because it was all the way up north of Tasmania. We drove up there in the morning and we drove back. We started the drive back just a bit past 11 PM and got back at 2 AM because my fellow Aaron, who got me that copy of Berserk, needed to go to work the next day. But we had lots of fun, and there were 3 venues, and even at the 3rd venue, the nice gentleman there, he has set himself up a fully mobile driving and virtual reality rig, which we got to have a quick play on. So enough of me talking, let's go and check out some of the video. I took things, and I unfortunately did not take a picture of every single pinball table as I normally did. I was too distracted and didn't have enough time, but I did take a video walk arounds, and then I'll show you the snaps of the tables I did. There were some very notable tables there that I'd never seen before, like an Apollo 11 and a Star Wars Data East pinball. They were both at the same place, and some really good things. My highest score was actually on a KISS pinball. And I got second highest score on that pinball, so the only person who beat me was the owner. That quite surprised me, so that's why I did so well at the second venue. So anyway, here's a bit of video, and we'll come back after that. Might as well rip the band-aid off. Teed off? Yeah, teed off. How is it?
Oh no, I probably might just keep going with this.
Half an hour ago?
Yeah, dialed in's good game.
it's just scary. So yeah, when you can't bloody aim people throwing it around like in a real plane. They don't have that problem sitting on their Xbox. So you see how fun this is? It's still pretty good.
How is this different? Yeah, is the extension running?
Yeah, I can hook it up.
Does it run okay up here, or do you have to pay?
That's fine. We just want to play something different.
I put him on a roller coaster, so we just...
I want to see him go upside down.
Yeah. Does it go upside down?
This has got a G-Lock R360. Wow. No, so this is the nicest, gentlest roller coaster we've got. But in VR, it just adds that extra with the depth. If you're a bit prone to motions, and if you put the straps on this bungee cord that pulls against you, just like so you can feel the G-force.
So as you can see, I was very lucky to play all those really nice tables. Didn't really have a lot of time at the third venue because we just quickly did our tournament games, didn't practice, had a bit of a play on the VR rig, which he let us do because he knew we were going, and then we had to head off. So, but he has actually invited us back at some stage when we get a bit more time and we can play a few more machines. And he unfortunately had 5 machines down. I did get to play Indiana Jones at a previous one, and the only game that was working that I didn't get to play that I really would have liked to play was Sinbad, which is one of the games on here. Because one of the guys who was obviously really good at it and wanted to play it got on there as soon as we got there, and he had a really long game, so I never got a chance to play that one. So definitely want to go back and play that one. Alright, hope this isn't be too long and rambly, and hope all you guys out there are safe and well and enjoying your retro games. I'm Archie Adventures. Thanks to all my subscribers, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.